How to show investors early stage traction. This is so important today because in the pre-seed early stage rounds, investors are looking for more and more traction all the time. And it is actually easier and easier to get traction, but a lot of founders don't understand the power that traction can have or the necessity that traction is required to get that early stage investment. In this video, I'm going to show you how to use my tool, the Startup Early Stage Funding Canvas, on how to show investors early stage traction. This is part of my ongoing series to show you how to use this canvas. It's a standalone video, but I'm going to include the playlist as well. It's also the tool that I'm using to determine which startups we're going to invest in with my YouTube Angel Fund. Before we continue, my name is Ed Kang, 7-time funded founder with 2 exits. That's just a fancy way of saying I've failed a bunch of times to your benefit because I like to share my successes, but most importantly, what I've learned from as far as my failures to try and help you avoid some of the catastrophic mistakes that I've made. Not to say you're not going to make mistakes, but I'm going to try to make your life a little bit easier. I'm also the Chief Strategy Officer for Startups.com. I work with the team that has helped startups raise close to $1 billion. I myself have raised over $100 million for my startups, other startups, and startup funds. If you're part of Startups.com, thank you so much for checking in on us. And if you're not, well, welcome. Make sure you check out Startups.com. Do the YouTube thing, like, comment, subscribe. Your comments are always appreciated. Love the support. Let's jump in on how to show investors early stage traction. Using this tool, you'll work from the outside in, understanding that you're going to be talking to investors at a specific stage. Now, here's something you need to know. If you're raising pre-seed funding, I saw stats out there that say close to 50% of investors at pre-seed are now looking for revenue of some sort, some type of traction. Some of them are seeking up to $1 million in revenue, and that is crazy, but it's the new normal. It's not 2021 anymore. So you're going to work from the outside in, and you're going to gather those metrics, and you're going to show the investors the traction that they are looking for, understanding that different investors at different stages require different metrics to de-risk the investment enough for them to make a positive decision to fund your company. By this time, you have a product unique value proposition that is clear, concise, compelling, and contrarian enough, and it's validated. If you have not done that, go back and do that video. Make sure you work on your unique value proposition. It should be encapsulated in 1-2 sentences max and make sense for all the investors as well as your users. Then you figured out your initial customer profile, or the person you're selling to, the user you're selling to before your ideal customer profile, because they're often 2 separate things, and that has been validated before. You understand who they are, and you're going to be working on how to get to them. Like I said, if you haven't validated your ICP yet, you need to go back to that stage. Next, you're going to try and get at least one customer, one user to love your product, not sort of like your product. You'd rather have one customer loving your product, like totally sold out. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Thank God for you that you're solving this problem. I love using your product, versus 100 customers that say, meh, I kind of tried it and it's all right. You want that one customer that loves your product. Because if you can get one customer to love your product, guess what? You can get 1 million customers to love your product. You're going to start there. And that's where you use your MVP. If you have not done that yet, go back to that step and make sure you have at least one customer loving your product, one user, and you know why, and you've talked to them. Now we get to this step, which is get them to pay you $1. Now you may be thinking to yourself, $1, that's it. Well, this is just metaphorical. It's a way to get you in the mindset that you just have to start somewhere. Just like if you got one customer, you can get 1 million customers. If you can make $1, you can make $1 million. If you've done the step previous to this in terms of getting a customer to love your product. If you get one customer to love your product and then you get 1 million customers, well, if you can get $100 from each of those customers, now you're a unicorn, $100 million. But you have to start somewhere. And so many founders get their shorts all wrapped up in a bunch, and they freak out and they stress out because what is my final price? What am I trying to do? And that is not the mindset that I want you in right now, because the earlier you can get that $1, might not be $1, might be more, the easier it's going to be to show investors that you got that early stage traction. And I'm going to show you the different ways to do that. But I want to explain to you the mindset of the investor. Think of it this way. Say you've got customers loving your product. Great, check. Now you want them to sign up on a mailing list, and they give you their email because they want more information. They want to know when you're actually selling the product or when the next version is coming out. But what's better, email address or email address with a credit card number? What's better from there? Email address, credit card number, and a deposit. You see how we're climbing this ladder and we're de-risking the investment versus going out there and saying, we haven't battle tested our pricing. We don't know. We're going out there. We're going to commit to sales. and we're going to get customers, but you might not get customers because you don't know. What if you could pre-sell? What if you could have a built-in audience? I've seen this happen before. I'm a big fan of fantasy authors, and I'm big into the creator economy, and I'm watching some of these creators put out stuff for free, and then what happens is people love their stuff so much they say, can I give you some money? Can I sign up for your Patreon? Or can I get access to exclusive membership benefits, and I'll pay you $1 a month, $5 a month? And I see founders start to make so much money using the creator economy because they get these fans that are willing to convert and start paying money, and then you can start selling products to them. We teach founders this all the time. If you're in the creator economy, roughly 3% of your audience will convert into something paying if you're adding the right unique value proposition. If you are presenting them value and you're giving them something that they can have exclusive or outside of all the free users, 3% is the rough conversion number. That's something that you can be thinking about. So if you're able to share with investors that we are converting 3%, guess what? Our audience is growing because they're loving our stuff, and 3% are starting to pay. How much easier of a conversation is that to raise money if you've got no conversions? You're not making that $1 from anybody at all. So let me give you the things that you can do to get that early stage traction to show investors. The first you might want to think about is pre-orders. If you've got pre-orders, then you've got customers just waiting, and they don't even know what your final product could be, but they're so excited about your unique value proposition and they love what you're saying so far. You've got pre-orders. The next is LOIs, and those are pretty much pre-orders. If someone signs on the dotted line on a piece of paper with their logo on it, if you are doing some type of B2B or SaaS or enterprise sales, LOIs are just as good. I've seen founders raise millions of dollars just on LOIs alone. They just have to be very impressive LOIs. But if you get a whole bunch of LOIs, guess what? Those clients have agreed on pricing and they're willing to sign a piece of paper. That speaks a lot to investors. After that, founder access. That's the same thing as going on a Patreon or getting part of a club. You're giving them access to you. Maybe you're doing something where they're paying a bit of money and they can join you on a monthly webinar call. Maybe you're building in public and they can give you feedback on the features that they want. Maybe you're giving them access to you to ask you questions, get to know who you are, develop a relationship with you. That's something that you can do to get pre-sales, pre-orders ready to go. That's the early stage traction. After that, deposits, just as good. You've got pre-orders, but a deposit for 50%. Maybe you say, we're going to give you a discount if you put down a deposit. The Cybertruck did that. Elon Musk understands how to put down deposits, and that's where you can determine who your best customers are, who you're going to be talking to first, if they're willing to plunk down their money, and investors love seeing that. After is crowdfunding. You can get pre-sales going by crowdfunding it, and those are customers that are going to buy your product ahead of time. I've raised money like this. I was able to raise $250,000 after doing $40,000 of sales, pre-sales using crowdfunding. I got all of them to pay. Of course, there was a bit of a discount, but I went out to the crowd and I showed investors there is a demand for my product in the markets, in the consumer markets, and that's going to speak very loudly. How about beta access? You can say you can access the beta, you can come in. Video games do this all the time. They do a closed beta, and people are willing to pay for beta access as long as you make sure that the experience is really good, because they're going to get influence. They're going to be able to share with their friends, and they're going to have input, and they have a level of ownership if they can get beta access. You just have to make sure that you're servicing them like customers, because you want them to experience your product up in front ahead of time and get their feedback. It's so valuable. But if they're willing to pay for it, oh my gosh, even better. After that, become a founding member. This is when you say to your audience, become a founder like me. I've got a special club. Become a founding member, and you're going to be listed on our website or all our videos, or there's going to be a special thank you, and you will be considered a founder. So many people want to be part of that. That's why they participate in crowdfunding. But now you can say there's this exclusive club where you can be a founding member. I did this in China where we are doing something in organization development, OD, and we had the OD 100, and it was an ed tech platform. And if you join, you could be part of the first 100, and everyone was scrambling and people were fighting for the number one spot. Truthfully, we could have made it the OD 1000, or we could have expanded it, but that 100 was such an exclusive club, and we got that technique from the HR 100. It was fantastic. And yeah, it created a lot of energy and excitement. So a founding member or some type of exclusive club that they have to pay for, that could work for you. The next is lifetime pricing. Never underestimate some people willing to say, I will pay you upfront if you give me lifetime pricing, because I know it's going to cost me way more if I have to pay month over month, year over year. Lifetime pricing to get in early, that's a technique I've seen used remarkably well many times. Now you got pilots. You can say, hey, we'll do a pilot, and you can give a guarantee, or you can say, just pay us cost for the pilot. You have to pay something. Everyone will take a pilot for free, but are they willing to pay at least something? Investors want to know, they want to see that. But if you reduce the cost of your pilot, now you've got portfolio pieces. If you're doing that B2B enterprise solution, you can say to other companies, look at my client portfolio, look at the social proof. So pilots discounted allows you to make some money, probably pay for operations or pay for the overhead, cost of goods sold, but also show revenue to investors. Services, a lot of startups can start off as a service business. I just did this on startups.com where we were reviewing some pitch decks, and we're talking about a founder who wanted to release a CPG product. It was a health product. Well, why not start with health coaching and start to get those clients on board and start building that list? And then you can learn from those clients as they're paying you. Would they like a health bar? Would they like other types of products? What type of health bar? Because you're getting to know them. And guess what? Your customer acquisition goes all the way to zero. Your CAC is zero if you already have them as your clients because you're giving them services. Sometimes just stepping back and saying, how can I turn this into a service is a great way not only to get that early stage traction, but also to bootstrap your business. That leads to next, custom consulting. And this is a little different than services. You may take your product, let's say you're building a SaaS, and say, we will customize it for you in the beginning. And that's okay. If you need to give them the product and say, we'll do 80% customization for you, maybe even a white label, something like that, that's going to help you sell ahead of time and get those initial users and start to understand so you can, again, build that social proof. But later on, you'll start to divest yourself from that customization. You'll slowly transition and say, now we're only going to do 50% customization, 20%, and then maybe you've got two types of products where one is customizable for a big chunk of money, or you can get the out-of-the-box solution, and that's where white label starts to come in. I see this all the time. Pay a certain amount of money and get the watermark, but if you pay this amount of money, you can eliminate the watermark, put your logo on, or you can pay way more money and you can get custom work development done for you. That could be a great technique, especially if you're in the B2B or that SaaS territory. Then there's pre-products. This is kind of like pre-orders, but you're doing another product. Think about Elon Musk and all the pre-products he does. The flamethrower for the Boring Company. What does that have to do with drilling underground tunnels for transportation? Nothing whatsoever, but it's a great way to fund the company. You look back, NFTs were a good example of pre-products. You'd sell an NFT and then that would give you exclusive access to the product later on. These were the tokens. They were governance tokens that will allow you to vote in the ecosystem. And that ecosystem has not totally matured yet. We're still starting to see the potential and the industries innovate into that potential, but I'm seeing some amazing ideas out there where even the ticket, just the ticket and the cost of the ticket itself is a collector item. It is a pre-product. So if you can figure out how to sell something in advance of your product that gets people excited and it's something that they can say maybe they collected or they're part of that exclusive initial run, just like those flamethrowers, then you're going to be in good company because other companies have done that as well. Then you're going to be one step ahead of showing that traction before your product comes out. Now, a common question is exactly what do we test? Well, that's where you have to go and talk to the users out there. By this time, you should have access to those users who love the product so you can start having those conversations. And if you're not sure, ask them or give them some options. Make a prediction. Test out 3 of them and say, what would you buy? It costs you nothing. And guess what? If they're already in love with your product, they will participate. If you've ever been in a situation where a customer contacts you and says, man, I love using your product. Can you do this? Can you do that? They give you the ideas, or they ask you, how can I get more of it? Or how can I give you more feedback so you can make it better? There are the early adopters out there that want to early adopt and send you that feedback. They are so valuable. And this goes all the way back to defining your initial customer profile. If you're not targeting those early adopters, then you're missing out because it's those early adopters that are going to prepay for things and give you that feedback. And that's how you determine how you can make money from them. But let me give you a set of questions that you can ask. It's the same thing as upfront customer interviews, but once they're using the product, you contact them and say, can I ask you a question that will really help us develop this product? I'd love to know your opinion because you're so important to us. The first question would be, what would you pay? It's just really straightforward. After you find out why they love your product, what are the features they love, etc., you can go on and say, what would you pay for this? Let me give you a personal story, one of my startups. on this. I was trying to do price discovery, and I was trying to price our product around $17 under that $20 mark. And I was talking to a user who is a raving fan of our product. And I asked, what would you pay? But further, I asked, what did you pay in those other solutions? And they said to me, we pay up to $10,000. And I said, wow, that's crazy. So if I charge you 10% of that, mine was a 10x solution for the same result. I charge you $1,000. Would you pay that? And they were like, absolutely, we pay that. And then I said, all right, here's what I'm going to do because I want to extend the lifetime value. I said, I'm going to charge you $77 a month, and you can get all the benefits up front. And if you stay with me, I'll continue to give you more benefits, hoping that it's not just $1,000, but we continue on for years and years. And that's what investors really liked. They liked our business model because it was predictable revenue, and I had ongoing customers. And now we just have to fight churn. If we could keep them and show that customers are going to spend $77 a month, they're going to stay 3 months, then 4 months, then 5 months. Investors love that story. And that all came from a conversation talking to a customer, what would you pay for this? I've launched entire products based upon someone telling me we'd pay $10,000 for it. I know other founders said, what would you pay? And they say, we will actually pay you more than the competition if you have this feature. And that gives them insight into the next feature that they need to code into their product. Never underestimate the power of asking questions to your audience, especially the ones that already love your product. After that, you're going to ask them, when would you buy? Being time sensitive is important. Would you buy right away? Would you buy later? When would you buy? And they may say, we need to see a little more of this and that before we plunk down our money. Or you'll find out when they'll buy. Maybe it's time based on a specific situation or an annual event or something that reoccurs in their lives that say that's when they would buy. Let's say, for example, they would buy it if they were about to sell their home. Well, now you know how to find those customers and know when they're the most receptive to paying you money, because nothing gives you better feedback than telling someone the price and then asking them for it, or saying, when would you pay that price? That's the feedback that you want. Another question that founders don't ask enough is, how would you pay? I was just part of a startup and I was helping them launch, and we found out that some people want to pay by crypto and some people want to pay by cash. It was one of these products that was a little bit off the beaten path, and they wanted to make sure the transaction didn't go through the regular payment processors. And that's totally fine. If you have a disruptive product, guess what? A lot of times those early adopters are not going to want to be on the radar. And so we had to understand this is the type of customer that we were working with, and we figured out a solution, coded it in on how they could pay with cash or how they could pay with crypto. There are other ways that people want to pay. They want to pay in installments. They want to pay upfront if you give them a deal. Let's say they're willing to pay for 12 months if you charge them only 10 months worth and you give them 2 months free. Those are all questions that you are going to ask, and you're going to get that information that's going to help you do pricing discovery. Then one of the most important questions I ask is, who else decides? Who else is involved in the situation? And there are some common answers such as, oh, my wife has to decide. I'm going to talk to my wife. And then you're going to know how you need to address certain objections, or what type of marketing, what type of additional sales support you need to provide to make sure that that individual, let's say a husband, has to go talk to his wife, what you're going to give them to arm that husband to pitch his wife. Or maybe they're going to tell you, I need to talk to my wife, and they're just giving you an excuse. And then you can build in your sales process, your sales funnel, how to get around that objection. But there are other important issues that come into play, such as when I'm talking to an HR company, they have to go get approval from the CFO. So I need to make sure this makes sense for the CFO, just like a spouse has to make sense. A lot of startups, they end up talking to companies and they find someone who's willing to pay, they're willing to pay the price, they agree, but they have to get all these sorts of approvals. And so if you run into red tape, you have to figure out, well, what can they pay? Maybe it's something that they've got discretionary spending on. Maybe they need more social proof. Maybe they need to see Trustpilot reviews. That's a big thing these days. I don't know what it is, but you are going to ask them who else is going to be involved, who else would you talk to, and get their understanding of their mindset of who they would talk to, because those are people you can also influence. You might even discover a whole other set of customers. And how you're going to end this is my secret trick. I use this statement: if I blank, then you will. I say, if I get this demo ready, then you will sign up and you will get on our beta. If I send you the link, then you are going to sign up for our mailing address. If I get you that pricing and all the options, you're going to pick one and put down a deposit, and you will get that feedback. And you might get bad news, and that's okay. That's the bad news that you definitely want. If I, then you will. That's a declarative statement, and you want to get them nodding their head and saying yes. Here's another story. Back in the day with Stripe, they did customer discovery and sales and idea validation. I remember the stories about Stripe. They did customer discovery and they figured out price, and they did sales at the same time. They went and they literally sat beside someone and said, said, if I bring you my laptop, you will sign up right now and you will start to use the product. And that was the literal move because Stripe was able to sit beside them and do the product for them and make sure that they closed the sale. But then later on, they would watch the people do it themselves. And this is what a lot of startups do, is they sit down beside the person and say, do it without a talking head, without a voiceover, and say, let me watch you use the product. So make sure you are ready after you've done all those questions, gathered the information. It might take you a few interviews. You're going to get that statement ready. If I do this, then you will do that, and get them to agree. And then you've got your funnel, and investors are going to love it that you've explained to them that this is the story, this is how you got to this sales funnel that you're using, and you are now making $1, $10, $100 per user that's coming in. They will love you. Trust me. So there you have it. That's the canvas so far. Make sure you check out the playlist that I'm going to put on the screen. You're going to see the other videos that you can watch. And don't forget, if you're an early stage founder and you want to apply for our YouTube angel funding plus our startups.com sponsorship package, I'm going to put a link below. But I want to see founders use this because that's my investment thesis, that if founders know how to use this, they know how to raise more money in future rounds, as well as get those customers and start to get the early stage traction that we are all looking for. Thanks again. Love to hear your thoughts. Let me know what you think, and I will see you in the next video.